Stop scrolling for a second, because what you're about to hear isn't just celebrity news. It's a moment that split millions of fans into two emotional camps. Stay until the end, drop your reaction, and decide for yourself whether this was a romantic power move or a quiet disappointment no one expected. It started with a single gesture that froze the red carpet. Under blinding lights and non-stop camera flashes, Taylor Swift stepped into view. Not alone, not rushed, but walking hand in hand with Travis Kelce. The grip was firm, unhidden, deliberate. No wave and release, no polite distance, just closeness. In that split second, the internet ignited. Photos traveled faster than the flashes that created them. Taylor smiling softly, Travis leaning in, their fingers interlocked as if the world wasn't watching, yet knowing exactly that it was. Fans called it intimate, confident, even defiant. Others called it historic. But beneath the surface of that romantic snapshot, a different story was already building tension. Because while the images screamed together, the headlines soon whispered something else. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were not seen attending the full main ceremony of the Grammy Awards 2026. No long shots of her seated among nominees. No live reaction shots. No acceptance speech moment lighting up the room. And just like that, joy turned into confusion. The tempo shifted. Social media, once glowing with heart emojis, pivoted into questions. Why skip the night that defined so much of her legacy? Why now? For years, the Grammy stage had been more than an awards platform for Taylor. It was a battleground, a diary, a victory lap. Fans had prepared themselves for another iconic chapter. Instead, they got absence. And that absence spoke loudly. Some fans felt let down, even betrayed. "We waited all year," one post read. "This was supposed to be her night." Others defended her fiercely, pointing to the red carpet moment as proof that something deeper was happening. Not a disappearance, but a decision. Then came the mid-story twist that kept everyone watching. Insiders hinted that the choice was intentional, that this wasn't about schedules or logistics alone, but about boundaries, about reclaiming control in an industry that never stops asking for more. Taylor, according to close sources, wasn't running from the Grammys. She was redefining her relationship with them, and Travis Kelce wasn't a distraction. He was part of the equation. Watch the footage again. Slow it down. The way he waits for her pace. The way she turns slightly toward him, not the cameras. These aren't accidental movements. They're signals. As the night went on, the realization settled in. The red carpet was the message. The ceremony was optional. This was the payoff. In choosing visibility without full participation, Taylor Swift sent a quiet but powerful statement. That success doesn't always require center stage. That love doesn't have to be hidden to be protected. And that sometimes the loudest moments are the ones where nothing is said at all. By morning, fans were still divided, but the conversation had evolved. From "why didn't she show up?" to "what does this mean for her next era?" And maybe that's the point. Taylor Swift has always controlled the narrative by shifting it just when people think they understand it. One handhold, one decision, one night that will be remembered not for what happened inside the venue, but for what happened just outside of it. Now it's your turn. Was this a romantic, intentional power move that shows growth and balance? Or did the Grammys lose a piece of their magic by not having Taylor fully present? Share your take, because this story doesn't end on the red carpet. Continues with every reaction, including yours. And the story didn't stop there. As the night moved forward and the Grammy broadcast rolled on without its most anticipated figure fully present, the silence around Taylor Swift became louder than any applause inside the venue. Cameras searched for her out of habit. Commentators paused, then moved on. And in that empty space, speculation grew teeth. Industry insiders began dissecting every detail. Some pointed to the timing, 2026 marking a turning point in Taylor's career, where legacy no longer needs constant reinforcement. Others whispered about exhaustion, about years of carrying the weight of expectation, criticism, and constant reinvention. To them, skipping the full ceremony wasn't a snub. It was a reset. Meanwhile, Travis Kelce's presence shifted the narrative even further. This wasn't a fleeting appearance or a strategic photo op. Throughout the evening, witnesses described the two moving as a unit. No separation, no rush, no performative gestures for the press. When Taylor laughed, Travis leaned in. When flashes intensified, his hand tightened slightly around hers. Small details, but details that fans replayed frame by frame. The tempo spiked again online. Clips looped endlessly. Zoom-ins on their hands. Slow-motion edits of eye contact. Split-screen comparisons with past Grammy nights where Taylor stood alone under pressure. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Before, it was trophies and speeches. Now, it was presence and choice. Still, disappointment lingered. For longtime fans, Grammy night without a full Taylor Swift appearance felt unfinished. Playlists were ready. Reaction videos were queued. Predictions had been made. And yet, the moment they waited for never arrived. Some called it anticlimactic. Others called it unfair. To the fans, to the show, to the legacy she helped build. But then came the counterargument that shifted the conversation once more. What if this was the most honest move she's made in years? In a career defined by narrative control, Taylor Swift has always known when to enter the spotlight and when to step just outside of it. By appearing on the red carpet but not committing to the entire spectacle, she created a boundary without disappearing. Visible but untouchable. Present but not consumed. That nuance is what turned a simple attendance question into a cultural debate. Because this wasn't just about one artist or one awards show. It was about the evolving relationship between celebrities and their audiences. About whether access is a right or a privilege. About whether personal happiness can coexist with global fame without apology. As the night faded into early morning headlines, one phrase kept repeating across platforms. She chose herself. And maybe that's the real climax of this story. Not the hand-holding, not the skipped seats inside the venue, but the realization that Taylor Swift no longer needs to prove anything to anyone, not even on the biggest stage of the music industry. The Grammys will always be part of her history, but they may no longer define her present. By sunrise, fan sentiment began to soften. Anger gave way to reflection. Disappointment turned into discussion. And slowly, the narrative shifted from loss to meaning, from absence to intention, because love, when displayed without fear, can be its own kind of statement. And on that red carpet, under relentless flashes and louder expectations, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce didn't just walk together. They stood still long enough to show the world that sometimes the most powerful move isn't winning the night. It's choosing how you show up in it. Now the question isn't why they skipped the Grammys. The question is what this moment signals for everything that comes next. And that's why people are still talking. As the hours passed and the Grammy night officially closed, the conversation around Taylor Swift didn't fade. It multiplied. Morning shows, entertainment columns, and late-night radio segments all circled back to the same unresolved tension. How could one of the most dominant artists of her generation be both present and absent at the same time? Behind the scenes, sources close to the event described a quiet surprise. Producers had prepared for the usual Taylor Swift effect, the camera cuts, the crowd reactions, the inevitable spikes in social engagement. Instead, what they got was something far more unpredictable. A viral red carpet moment that overshadowed performances, speeches, and even award wins. Without stepping onto the main floor, Taylor Swift had still managed to dominate the narrative. That alone told a story. For years, her relationship with the Grammys had been complex. Triumphs, controversies, record-breaking wins, and moments of silence that sparked debate. Each appearance had carried weight. Each absence had been scrutinized. But this time felt different. This time, there was no defensive explanation, no immediate clarification, no carefully worded statement released to control the damage. Just stillness. And standing beside her in that stillness was Travis Kelce. Observers noted how unusual it was for a global pop icon to allow her partner to share that exact emotional space at such a critical cultural moment. This wasn't backstage. This wasn't after parties or private exits. This was the front line, the red carpet, where narratives are usually polished and calculated. Yet everything about their interaction felt unfiltered, almost stubbornly normal. That authenticity became the fuel for deeper speculation. Was Taylor Swift signaling a shift away from industry validation? Was this a quiet protest against an award system she had already conquered? Or was it simply the natural evolution of an artist who no longer needs external milestones to define success? Opinions clashed hard. Some critics argued that skipping the main Grammy ceremony risked alienating the very fans who built her career. They pointed out that award shows are not just about trophies, but about shared cultural moments, about being present with the audience that supported her through every era. To them, absence felt like distance, but others saw something else entirely. They saw confidence. They saw an artist who understands her impact so deeply that she no longer needs to compete for attention. It comes to her regardless. They saw a woman choosing emotional grounding over spectacle. And in an industry where burnout is often hidden behind flawless performances, that choice felt radical. The narrative intensified when fan-recorded footage began circulating online. Short clips of Taylor and Travis leaving the venue area quietly, without entourage theatrics. No dramatic exits, no chasing cameras, just movement, calm and unhurried. The contrast between that simplicity and the chaos of the awards show itself was striking. By midday, headlines shifted tone. What began as "fans disappointed" slowly transformed into "fans divided," and then into "fans reflect." Think pieces emerged. Commentators debated whether this moment marked the beginning of a new Taylor Swift era. One defined less by domination and more by intention. And intention, in this case, seemed personal. For Travis Kelce, the night also carried significance. Accustomed to stadiums, pressure, and public expectation in a different arena, he appeared completely at ease navigating the music industry's most scrutinized event. But unlike previous high-profile celebrity couples, there was no sense of one overshadowing the other. No hierarchy, no imbalance. That equality became part of the fascination. It wasn't just that they were together. It was how they were together, matching pace, shared focus, a visible refusal to let the night dictate their energy. In a space built on performance, they chose presence instead. As days passed, the Grammy night itself began to feel secondary. What people remembered wasn't who won which category or which performance stole the show. What lingered was that image. Two figures on a red carpet, hands linked, choosing connection over convention. And the more it was discussed, the clearer it became that this wasn't accidental. It was narrative through omission. Taylor Swift has always understood storytelling, not just in music but in life. Sometimes the loudest chapter is the one you don't write explicitly. Sometimes the pause says more than the chorus. And that pause echoed. Fans revisited lyrics from past albums, searching for parallels. Lines about escape, balance, and redefining success took on new meaning. Theories surfaced about future projects, potential breaks, or a creative shift inspired by stability rather than turmoil. Nothing confirmed. Everything speculated. Exactly the kind of ambiguity that keeps attention locked. Which brings the story to its real conclusion. Not an ending, but a pivot. The Grammy Awards 2026 will be remembered not just for its winners, but for the night Taylor Swift didn't fully show up and somehow still owned it. A reminder that influence doesn't always require attendance. That power can exist quietly, and that sometimes the most talked about moment is the one that leaves people asking why. So whether fans felt disappointed, inspired, or conflicted, one thing became undeniable. This wasn't a misstep. It was a moment of choice. And in an industry built on constant visibility, choosing how and when to be seen may be the boldest move of all. The story isn't over. It's just shifted direction. And whatever comes next, the world will be watching closer than ever. What made this moment linger wasn't outrage or celebration alone, but the uncomfortable gray area in between. Fans weren't just reacting to a skipped ceremony. They were reacting to a shift in power dynamics they weren't prepared for. For the first time in years, Taylor Swift didn't orbit around an institution. The institution orbited around her absence. Television ratings analysts quietly noted a pattern. Engagement spiked during red carpet coverage, dipped during parts of the main broadcast, then surged again online as discussions reignited around what didn't happen. That vacuum became content. Reaction videos, long threads, breakdowns, and speculative commentary filled the gap that a traditional Grammy appearance usually occupies. And that's where the tension deepened. Because when an artist of Taylor Swift's scale steps back, even slightly, it forces the audience to confront an uncomfortable truth. Access has always been conditional. Fans may feel entitled to moments, but those moments are still choices, carefully made, strategically timed, or, as in this case, intentionally withheld. Some longtime supporters admitted feeling conflicted. Not angry, just unsettled. Grammy night had become ritualistic, a shared experience, a familiar rhythm, and rituals, when broken, create emotional whiplash. You don't just miss the person, you miss the feeling attached to them. But others saw liberation in that disruption. They argued that Taylor Swift had spent more than a decade performing gratitude, resilience, and availability at a level few could sustain. That perhaps this wasn't withdrawal, but recalibration. That maybe the real headline wasn't skipped, but selective. As the debate stretched into its second and third day, industry veterans weighed in. Some praised the move as a masterclass in narrative restraint, proof that less exposure can create more impact. Others warned it could create distance over time if repeated too often. The line between mystique and disengagement, they said, is thin. Yet what kept undermining every critique was one undeniable fact. Nothing about this moment felt chaotic. There were no leaked frustrations, no awkward miscommunications, no signs of scrambling or damage control. Everything unfolded with a calm that suggested intention, planning, alignment, and that composure only reinforced the idea that this was not an accident or oversight, but a statement delivered quietly. Meanwhile, Travis Kelce's role continued to intrigue observers. Not because he spoke, but because he didn't. No interviews, no comments, no attempts to redirect attention. His silence functioned as support, not avoidance. And in an ecosystem where celebrity partners often rush to define their place in the narrative, that restraint was noticeable. It reframed the relationship not as spectacle, but as context. The longer the story circulated, the clearer it became that this wasn't about Grammy night alone. It was about evolution, about what happens when an artist reaches a point where the traditional markers of success no longer carry the same urgency, where personal alignment begins to outweigh public expectation. That realization landed differently depending on where you stood. For some fans, it was a reminder that idols are human. For others, it was a warning that eras change, sometimes without permission. And for the industry, it was a quiet signal that control no longer flows in one direction. Awards shows rely on stars, but stars don't always need awards shows. By the end of the week, the narrative had fully transformed. What began as disappointment matured into analysis. What felt like absence revealed itself as presence, just on different terms. And the red carpet moment, once seen as a prelude, now felt like the entire message condensed into a single frame. Two people, one choice, infinite interpretations. And that may be the most Taylor Swift move of all. Because in a world addicted to constant updates, she reminded everyone that withholding can be powerful, that silence can be strategic, and that sometimes the story people talk about the longest is the one you never fully explain. As conversations continue and anticipation builds for what comes next, musically, personally, professionally, one thing remains certain. Grammy Night 2026 didn't mark a disappearance. It marked a turning point, and whatever follows won't be measured by trophies or airtime, but by intention. And even after all of that, the ripple effect still hadn't reached its furthest edge. Weeks later, Grammy Night 2026 was still being referenced, not as a flashback, but as a benchmark. Before that night and after that night became quiet dividing lines in pop culture commentary. Analysts didn't just talk about Taylor Swift's decision. They talked about how it changed expectations for everyone else. Younger artists watched closely. Veterans took notes. Because if someone at the peak of cultural dominance could step back without losing relevance, the rules had clearly shifted. The most fascinating part was how little Taylor herself fed the machine afterward. No lengthy captions. No cryptic explanations disguised as gratitude posts. No interviews designed to smooth over fan disappointment. The absence of commentary became commentary, and in that vacuum, fans projected meaning, intention, even relief. It forced people to sit with uncertainty, a rare experience in a hyper-documented celebrity era. That uncertainty became the final pattern interrupt. Usually, stories like this resolve quickly. A statement drops, a narrative closes, attention moves on. But here, the lack of closure extended the life of the moment far beyond its original news cycle. The question wasn't answered, and because it wasn't answered, it stayed alive. Some fans began reframing their disappointment as something more personal. Not anger, but grief for a version of Taylor Swift they realized they were unconsciously holding on to. The version who always showed up, who always carried the emotional weight of the room, who always gave more than was required. Letting go of that version wasn't easy, but it may have been necessary, because what emerged instead was an artist who appeared grounded in a way that couldn't be manufactured. Someone comfortable letting a moment pass without capitalizing on it. Someone choosing alignment over amplification. And that shift, subtle as it was, resonated deeply with an audience growing tired of constant performance. Not just on stage, but in life.